Tonight, police issue a warning after dangerous weapons are reported at several underage outdoor parties. That story and...
I was screeching like we're going to die, but I didn't think we were going to get out. That's how I felt. And nobody had time to come and warn us or help us, or because it just happened so fast, right?
A family in Conception Bay North lost everything in the recent wildfires. We'll bring you their story.
The flow of letters and parcels through Canada Post is again at risk. The Postal Union has served notice. Job action could commence as early as Friday.
I am hopeful that the parties can try to knock something out in the next few days. I'm not going to hold my breath and go blue in the face.
And if we try and kind of white knuckle hold onto the past, it's going to be our death knell.
That story coming up.
So where's it going? It seems to me that MUN is once again mishandling their finances.
The Students' Union is outraged over MUN's decision to push ahead with a 4% tuition increase.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin in Conception Bay North. An Adams Cove woman says she and her parents lost everything in the recent wildfires. As Here and Now's Abby Cole reports, Tina Dale and her parents say they didn't have any time to grab any of their belongings, and she's hoping the province will step up with support.
There used to be a home here, but it burnt in a wildfire last week. Tina Dale lived here with her parents, and they only had minutes to escape.
All of a sudden, just like a big black, just everything turned black, right? And when we got on the doorstep, it was just like this heat and black everywhere. And like I said, and when I looked over there, those trees were on fire. There was big flames coming up behind the garage over here.
From the sky, you can see the extent of the destruction and damage caused by the fire. Earlier this month, a forest fire tore through Conception Bay North, destroying 12 homes and 45 structures. Water bombers worked for hours to put out the fires, saving many homes from destruction. But Tina Dale and her parents weren't so lucky.
We picked up nothing because, like I said, when I went in to get, we were trying to tell Mom we had to go. And when I went in to get her coat, I just looked out and the flames were all around us. And I said, we were just focusing, like Dad left in his slippers. Right? We took nothing. I thought we were going to die. Right? Yeah, I was screeching like we're going to die, but I didn't think we were going to get out. That's how I felt. And nobody had time to come and warn us or help us, or because it just happened so fast, right?
Dale had been living in her childhood home, helping her parents out in Adams Cove. Since their harrowing escape on May 7th, together they are trying to regather essential items they have lost. But the costs are adding up.
Dad is like, well, money can't replace what I've lost. But I'm like, Dad, you have no clothes. He lost everything, like clothes, his teeth, his phone, you don't realize your toothbrush, everything. I called Eastlink this morning and I said, yeah, our house burned down. And she said, oh, well, you might be charged for the modem because you're not going to bring the modem back. And I said, whatever, I don't even care.
Dale says the kindness and generosity has been overwhelming. Her daughter started a GoFundMe, which has raised over $6,000. But Dale says it isn't enough and is hoping for government support.
They had no insurance, so we're hoping that the government or something is going to step in. But I called Steve Crocker's office and just left my name and number because I'm like, am I supposed to tell somebody that we didn't have insurance and they lost everything they owned in their life? I haven't heard from anybody.
Dale says she hasn't heard anything from the provincial government, but she hopes they will announce financial support for those who have lost their homes soon. Abby Cole, CBC News, Adams Cove.
The RNC is warning teens and their families about the dangers of field parties after several violent incidents over the weekend. One youth was taken to hospital Saturday after multiple assaults were reported at a party near the Torbay Bypass Road. Those assaults allegedly involved a gun and bear spray. A gun was also reported at a field party in Logie Bay Middle Cove Outer Cove on Sunday. Later that same night, another party was reported in the Goulds. Police were told multiple teenagers there had weapons and several were maced with bear spray. No arrests have been made. Well, in other news, there may be more disruption coming to the mail service. Unionized workers at Canada Post could hit the streets as early as Friday. And as Terry Roberts reports, both sides appear to be far apart.
Another postal strike is the last thing this union leader wants to see.
It's going to be a hard conversation to have with my members that, we were out for 5 weeks in November and December, and now we're about to do that again.
And this Canada Post executive says there will be no winners, and an already grave situation for the Crown Corporation will only worsen.
We need to negotiate an agreement and not have another strike, because it would be debilitating to the Canadian economy at a time where it just doesn't need it.
But the stage is now set for more scenes like this from late last year, when tens of thousands of postal workers across Canada took job action ahead of the busy holiday season.
I am hopeful that the parties can try to knock something out in the next few days. I'm not going to hold my breath and go blue in the face.
Contract negotiations have stalled, and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers have issued a strike notice. Picket lines could go up as early as Friday. Canada Post says the union is living in the past, and changes are needed to address losses of up to $1 billion a year. One of the demands, that Canada Post can hire part-time workers and expand to weekend delivery.
How Canadians want things delivered to them has changed a lot since we designed a lot of the things that are in our collective agreements today. And if we try and do as Cup W does and kind of white knuckle hold onto the past, it's going to be our death knell.
The pending strike action also follows the release on Friday of a commission report into Canada Post, which determined the corporation was effectively bankrupt. Among the report's recommendations, that door-to-door delivery be phased out and that a moratorium on the closure of rural post offices be lifted. The union says it's an attack on the corporation.
It's hard to live with that stuff because you're taking public service away from the public.
Canada Post is facing fierce competition from the private sector and is losing market share. Another strike won't help with that.
That's a reality that us as a union, we need to consider that and really break down whether or not it's worth it.
Terry Roberts, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
The province's seniors advocate is calling for changes to protect seniors from skyrocketing rates in personal care homes. Government ministers agree seniors' care should be reformed, but they haven't committed to following recommendations from the seniors advocate. Here now's Mark Quinn has more.
The seniors advocate says rental rates at personal care homes shouldn't be allowed to increase dramatically or without proper notice.
That can't happen and should not happen.
Walsh is calling on the province to ensure rental rates don't increase more than once a year and that they don't increase more than the rate of inflation. She also says seniors should get 4 months' notice of any increase.
We know we have many seniors in this province who went into personal care homes, understanding what their rate would be, and then all of a sudden the rates go up. And they're, well, what do I do now? Where do I go? I can't afford to pay.
The minister responsible for seniors agrees it's a problem, and John Abbott says he'll bring it to the Cabinet Committee on Seniors.
What can we do and what should we do? And to me, so this is a very live issue, and we just got to get working on it.
The seniors advocate also recommends that no senior be evicted from a personal care home unless there's a transition plan in place for their care. And she's calling for financial penalties if an eviction happens without such a plan.
We know there's many people being evicted from personal care homes. They're being dropped in at the health science. They're being told, you can't come back, you can't stay here. This doesn't happen overnight. I am not saying that there aren't legitimate reasons people need to leave personal care homes. But that can be planned for. It should be planned for. We can't be leaving people homeless.
The health minister says changes are coming. Krista Lynn Howell says the province is developing continuing care legislation and operational standards for personal care homes.
There's plans in place. There's already courses of action that we're able to utilize to best provide these services for seniors until the legislation is prepared and ready for public presentation.
However, those changes aren't expected to be revealed this spring in the current session of the House of Assembly. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, from seniors to students, the Minister of Education says it's up to Memorial University to decide how and where it spends operational funds from the province. Bernard Davis highlighted government's revamped student aid packages and increased financial investment in the university.
We've looked at some of the cost pressures that they had based on what they had asked us to look at, and we gave them more money. But as I've said many, many times, it is up to the university to determine where and how they spend that money. I always would like to see as low a tuition as you possibly can for our students. I mean, we all see that the cost of living is high for everybody. Students are not sheltered from that. So anything we can do to support them, like we've done with the $7.8 million for campus renewal, we didn't want to see that fee go on to each and every student. And that's part of the reason why we've increased the student aid package.
Well, earlier this month, some Memorial University students protested the university's plan to raise tuition by 4%, a gradual increase that began in 2023. Tuition will rise 4% each semester until the end of 2026. Despite the student union's efforts, the university is still implementing the tuition hike.
It is very, to me, obvious that tuition should have been frozen this year. This is not the money had to come from somewhere. This is not, well, there's infrastructure issues, there's financial issues at the university. That's what the operating grant is for. That's what the $70 million that the provincial government invested into MUN's infrastructure this year is for, not the tuition offset grant. The tuition offset grant, there was also extra money there not going to tuition. So where's it going? It seems to me that MUN is once again mishandling their finances.
Well, shifting now to provincial politics, where NDP representation in the House of Assembly is shrinking. Jordan Brown says he's decided not to seek re-election for family reasons. Brown served in Labrador West for 6 years, but says traveling back and forth from St. John's to Labrador has taken a toll.
I'm one of the farthest away MHAs. I'm in the most western point of the province. My flight, I'm usually 6 hours on a plane, back and forth, living in a hotel room out of a suitcase, and I have young kids at home that, they're calling me and saying, Dad, I did this, Dad, I did that today, or, when you get back, can we go do this? And it does take a toll on an individual, especially when you have a young family.
Meantime, the party's leader, Jim Dinn, confirms he will run for re-election. He says even without Jordan Brown on the ballot, the NDP is in good shape for the upcoming provincial election.
Got an awful lot of people who come forward to ask, say that they're interested in volunteering. They like what we've been doing in the House. And I will say that even when Alison was our leader, the three of us got along very well. And I like to believe we're pushing for the folk who don't always get invited to the $500 plate meal fundraising dinners that the other parties have. So the future is strong. Our finances are in good shape. We've got candidates now, some on the West Coast, in Labrador. We'll have our slate of candidates, and we'll come out just as strong as ever and carry on with the work we've been doing.
Premier Hogan is understanding that you can't be getting blood from a stone. So, you need to take steps, even though this might be just a small one. But this, combined with any other initiatives that he may do, helping to keep more money in the pockets of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
The province is scrapping its sugar tax, but what about lessons learned? I'll speak with the Retail Council of Canada's Jim Cormier about customer spending habits. That's coming up.
Well, the south coast and southwest coast of the island was a place to be today. Temperatures reaching anywhere from 13 to 14 degrees for you. Very different story, though, along the northeast coast, really anywhere for coastal areas of the island and Labrador. Temperatures are much cooler. We can thank northerly flow for that, and that is going to continue as we head through at least the next couple of days for the island. Drizzle and fog will be the story as we head through tonight and even most of tomorrow as well. But for Labrador, you've got a mild and dry stretch of weather as we look ahead to the beginning of next week even. I'll get into all the details coming up a little later.
Well, the provincial government recently announced it will scrap its controversial sugar tax introduced in 2022, a tax that added 20 cents to the cost of each liter of sugar-sweetened beverages. Now, the tax was intended to discourage people from choosing unhealthy sugary drinks by making them more expensive, but government says the cost of living concerns prompted them to walk back that tax, which brought in about $12 million annually to the province's coffers. So for reaction to this change, joining me now from Dartmouth is Jim Cormier of the Retail Council of Canada. So government repealing this sugar tax, what do retailers think of that move?
Well, our members, Retail Council of Canada, our members congratulate the new premier and his new team on making this decision. They understand that affordability issues have become more and more prevalent, and obviously over the last number of years, we've dealt with high inflation. Now we're dealing with threats, economic threats coming from our neighbors to the south, and who knows where that's going to go. So. It's a regrettable time that way, but at least Premier Hogan is understanding that you can't be getting blood from a stone. So you need to take steps, even though this might be just a small one. But this, combined with any other initiatives that he may do, helping to keep more money in the pockets of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And when you consider the fact that the intent of this sugar-sweetened beverage tax was to try and create better health outcomes, that didn't happen. So it was obviously a program that wasn't working. It was bringing in $12 million for the government, and the premier's making a decision that money should be better left in the pockets of the good people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
What did retailers notice on the ground with this? Because as you say, the intent was to encourage people to purchase healthier beverages, but were people just still buying the pop and all of that and just paying the higher price for it?
Well, to start off, retailers have always been in the business of offering choice to our customers. So, you can go into most, especially mid to large size retailers that sell beverages, and they will offer healthy beverage products, but they'll also offer other products that would qualify under the definition of a sugar-sweetened beverage. So, they're in the business of providing that type of choice. And what we found over the last 3 years, despite the tax being in there, is that we found amongst our members that generally there was no decrease in the purchasing of sugar-sweetened beverages, despite the fact that these costs went up. So, I get it. It's more complicated than that because, of course, the tax was levied at the manufacturer level. It passed down through the system to the retailers for the most part. And in some cases, some retailers chose to eat part of that price increase. Others passed it on fully to the customer. Others didn't pass it on at all, and they just simply, sent the money through. So, the government was still collecting $12 million a year, but in some cases, there wasn't much of a price increase of those sugar-sweetened beverages, and there was very little to no education campaign that was supposed to accompany it. So, most people were still just going on with the status quo and buying whatever they wanted to buy.
What kind of an effect did the tax have on retailers and their business?
Well, it's always difficult whenever you, especially if you're dealing with mid to large sized retailers that do business in multiple provinces, they like harmonization. Point of sale systems that, you spit out your point of sale receipt, your tap and go type of systems, those cost a lot of money. And whenever you make even minor changes to the way that the system is designed, it costs a tremendous amount of money. So you could have 800 stores across Canada. You might have 3 of them in Newfoundland and Labrador. So when a change to the tax system comes up like this, that's only in Newfoundland and Labrador, you have to make expensive changes only for, say, 3 stores. So a lot of costs up front. Now, there will be costs to take them off, but from what our members are saying, they're very happy that this change will be made and, we'll be able to harmonize going forward. And it's often easier and cheaper to tear things down than it is to build up an entire system just for one small province.
All right. Well, Jim Cormier, thank you so much for your time and for your perspective on this. Really appreciate it.
We'll chat anytime. Thank you.
In 1964, we were granted a license for our second, but now primary production center in St. John's. CBNT just went on the air on October the 1st of that year from temporary quarters on Water Street West and continued there until March 1966 when the big move took place.
Well, Ashley, the beautiful weather we had on the weekend is certainly long gone now, and we on the island, I guess we should just settle in to this new pattern.
Yeah, just for a little while, which is good news. It isn't going to stick around for weeks on end like sometimes we see around this time of year, but yep, we're in northerly flow. Taking a look at what else is going on, we've got a ridge of high pressure well to our north at the moment, but that will eventually sink south as we head through the next couple of days. But yeah, this area between the area of high pressure to the north and an area of low pressure just to our south and east, we are seeing that northerly flow. Most of you are going to see that continue as we head through Wednesday and even into Thursday, but eventually this ridge of high pressure is, or another ridge of high pressure is going to sink south, and by the time we get into Thursday, dry things out a little bit, especially as we get into Friday. So for now, we are going to continue to deal with these temperatures that are anywhere from 1 to 5 degrees from Nain all the way along the coast to St. John's and even Cape Ray. So you get away from that, though, temperatures are still quite nice, 10 to 12 degrees. For those of you in the southwestern corner of the province, that is around where we should be sitting this time of year. And then just taking a look at the change in temperature from yesterday, much cooler, though, for those of you through central, between 7 to 9 degrees colder than it was yesterday at this time. And even along the south coast, your temperatures are a tad warmer as well. So just taking a look at the satellite and radar, mainly just cloud cover. There's really not a whole lot of weather. We are seeing some patchy drizzle in the mix, and we'll continue to see some fog patches as we head through the night tonight. You can see some of that fog off in the distance. Visibility down to about 0.8 of a kilometer at the airport. Temperature sitting around 2 degrees, bit of a wind chill out there, but definitely can see that northerly flow at about 20 kilometers per hour at the moment. We're seeing some of that low visibility through Gander as well. And as we head through tonight, we're going to see more in the way of fog patches, especially as we head into the early morning hours tomorrow. So the drizzle and fog will continue all along the northeast coast. But really, other than that, nothing significant weather-wise expected as we head through tonight and into tomorrow. And those cloudy skies are going to keep the temperatures relatively mild, still sitting above zero, anywhere from about 2 to 5 degrees, the warmest temperatures again along southern areas of the island. Between 3 and 5 degrees with some sunshine. In Labrador, for the most part, most of you will be sitting just a little bit above zero, with the exception of Nain, where you will eventually drop to the minus single digits tonight. As we head into tomorrow afternoon, or tomorrow morning, I should say, now there's a slight chance we can see some wet snow in the mix. I do think most of this is going to just be flurries, though, because we've got that marine influence with those milder temperatures. But for the most part, the onshore flow is going to keep us in some drizzle and fog and maybe even some showers through most of the day tomorrow, especially for southeastern portions of Labrador, the northern peninsula, and really all along the northeast coast. However, the weather in the afternoon should start to improve, especially for those of you on the north coast of Labrador, and then through Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and even Lab West. You may see some sunshine. And the best chance of seeing some sunshine will be for the southwestern corner of the island. And that is very typical for this time of year when we see those northerly winds stick around. through the day as well. Even into the overnight, we're going to continue to see that. We'll eventually start to see a little bit more of a shift to more northwesterlies, which is that ridge of high pressure moving down. And that is going to keep the skies clear up across Labrador. You're in for a very mild stretch of weather as we head through the rest of the week and into next week. So taking a look at the temperatures tomorrow, most of us sitting in the mid single digits or low single digits, with the exception of the west coast, should reach between 11 to 14 degrees. Southern areas of the island as well, anywhere from 11 to 13 degrees. And then for Labrador, the coast will look at, or you'll see your temperatures sitting around 4 to 8 degrees, and then double digits for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Lab City sitting around plus 12. With your winds out of the east between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. So this is the coldest air that you're going to see over the next little bit. Your temperatures should soar into the teens, upper teens even, and I'll get into all of that in the long range forecast.
The film and television industry is on a roll in this province, just as President Donald Trump is musing about imposing tariffs on productions shot outside of the United States. A star-studded list of American shows have filmed here recently, and it's been a big opportunity for young people trying to break into the business. Here and now, Zach Gowdy visited the Paul Pope Center for TV and Film to ask how the tariff talk is landing.
The tariffs, what are they? How is it going to structure? The word came out, but there was no explanation of it. So, like, I mean, what do we have to talk about? My name is Ray Fennelly. I'm campus manager of the Paul L. Pope Center for TV and Film.
Tell us about what's happening here today, Ray.
Well, we're getting down to the end of the year. So what's happening right now is we're getting ready for 2 shoots. We're building sets, painting sets. If you go around the building right now, the place is pretty crowded.
Some of the students who are here have gotten to work on some huge productions in the last couple of years. Can you remind us about some of the big ticket productions that have shot here in just the last year or two?
So right off the top, Peter Pan and Wendy. And then after that was Severance. And we also had Reacher in town last year. That had a lot of our people on it.
Those are all big American productions.
And of course, right now we have a major Netflix production ramping up, and we're going to be on that.
But in the midst of all of that, are you concerned that the local industry could hit a sudden slowdown because of this threat by President Trump to impose tariffs on non-U.S. film TV production?
I don't know how it's going to work, so as a direct result, I just have to be realistic from my day-to-day perspective, and we're carrying on. Like, this school was started to answer the need of the industry. The industry has stepped up as well and said, yeah, we are taking them, which becomes the new generation of filmmakers.
Is there a short-term effect here at the school and students who are thinking about, yes, this is a career for me, there's lots of work happening in Newfoundland and Labrador? Does that person think any differently when they hear the word tariffs and film?
I don't think that they even talk about it. Like, I honestly believe that it's not even on the radar of conversation. And like reading Hollywood Reporter this morning, I mean, the word tariff is not being bandied about much right now, so much as they're looking at different types of agreements. So, I mean, realistically speaking, let's cut to the chase. It's 2025. The world is in a moving position. We will get through it in as much that it is an international industry. Take, for instance, let's go see Mission Impossible and the wrap-up of that one, right? Where was that shot? Where was the franchise shot?
All over the world.
It's a world franchise is what it is. So realistically speaking, we're still going to be doing that because the world demands it. If you're going to look at what the streaming services offer, the streaming services are international. There's a British streaming service, a Canadian streaming service, an American, Australian. Saint-Pierre, we're on that. Critch, we're on that. So fundamentally, my biggest issue last week when all of this was hitting was we have 6 cameras and the gear got to go off now and be ready for the fall to come. As I said, like, we've got between 5 and 8 productions happening right now, and my biggest concern right now when we answer the phone or the emails is, who do we have to send out? That's my day-to-day concern.
I'm a very proud Newfoundlander, and to have that support, it means unbelievable amount, and I really can't thank everyone enough for that.
Well, the winner of Canada's Got Talent returns to Butlerville. We were there for the warm welcome home. So what's next for Jacob Lewis? That's still to come on Here and Now. Well, the vote recount for the federal riding of Terra Nova, the Peninsulas, is still ongoing tonight. 1,041 votes there are being disputed, meaning a judge is now going through those ballots one by one. So how does a ballot wind up being in the disputed pile? We put that question to lawyer Scott Lemke.
So the very first and most principled item that each of the council and the judge want to think about is voter intention. Who did that voter intend to vote for, and does the ballot otherwise fit the accepted ballot requirements set out in the Canada Elections Act? If that is clear, generally that vote should be counted. But when it becomes unclear is when we're going back to the identifying mark issue. So sometimes we'll see on a ballot, especially when someone brings their own pen to the polling location, which we suggest that they don't, or Elections Canada suggests that they do not do, but sometimes it happens, and they'll make a squiggle at the bottom of the ballot. And then they'll mark to make sure their pen's working, and then they'll mark the X beside their choice candidate's name. Well, arguments will be presented by council. Is that squiggle an initial? We don't know. And or perhaps you see a Nirvana face at the bottom of the ballot that has spiky. Like, is there some way that the elector could be identified by this very unique mark they've chosen to make on the ballot? And each one of those determinations is very fact-based and specific. And then the last things that I'll note is, with respect to the write-in ballots, it's very important to remember that in Canada, when we vote for members of provincial parliament. We vote for members of parliament. In this case, we vote for candidates, not parties, and not their leaders. So when we write on the write-in ballots, it's important that the candidate's name is there and not perhaps Mark Carney or not Liberal, Conservative, NDP, or whatever other party the elector may have chosen to write there. It must be for the candidate. 1,000 votes is a significant number of ballots, because at the end of the day, the judge is going to be responsible for going through each one of those 1,000, I think it's nearly 1,050, and making 1,050 determinations about whether or not those votes should or were properly counted on election night.
Returning now to one of our top stories, Canada Post received strike notice from the union representing its 55,000 postal workers. The government ended the last strike in December, but as the CBC's Georgie Smythe reports, the gap between the two sides that triggered the initial strike remains just as wide as it was 6 months ago.
Canada's postal service is once again on the verge of shutting down. CUP W, the union speaking for 55,000 Canada Post workers, says members are ready to walk off the job Friday morning.
We certainly didn't want to be in this place.
This strike would be the second in 6 months, an extension of a job action that started just before the busy Christmas season last year on issues like wage increases, pensions and medical leave. They were ordered back to work after 32 days. Now the extended collective agreements expire in just 3 days.
Unfortunately, Canada Post walked away from the table again last week. I think that's about the third time through this process that they've walked away from the table. And they also indicated that they may change our working conditions.
Canada Post is facing a large financial shortfall, more than $800 million in 2023. Last week, a report recommended changes to save money, like phasing out daily door-to-door letter mail delivery and hiring part-time employees.
It points out that Canada Post is facing an existential crisis, that the financial situation needs to be addressed, and we need to be making a number of changes, starting with negotiating agreements that reflect the realities of 2025.
The union rejected most of the recommendations and says it wants to continue to negotiate. Both sides are at an impasse.
When you intervene, you really don't solve the underlying problems, they just continue to fester.
But acting on the report's recommendations could mean big disruptions too.
Restructuring means making Canada Post much, much smaller. This means layoffs of thousands and thousands of workers.
Both sides say they still hope to return to the bargaining table, but if no agreement is reached, operations like mail and parcel delivery would stop by the end of the week. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still with the story, workers in this province will be the first to hit the picket lines come midnight on Friday should the Canadian Union of Postal Workers decide to strike. Mike McDonald is the head of Local 126. He spoke with our Terry Roberts earlier today about the message he has for the public.
It's a hard conversation to have with the public. I mean, you know, when you see a disruption like that, and Canada Post, as much as people think that we're moving off into the sunset or not as viable as we used to be, people rely on us on a daily basis. So I think that's where some of the frustration comes from the public, is seeing us move through these processes. But we were in a legal position to do so. So we followed all of the legal avenues to make sure that we provided notice, that we talked to our membership, that we built our demands that they wanted. And those demands were what was taken to the table. So it can be hard for the public to understand I guess, the nuances of how negotiations can flow and the back and forth that takes place. And I guess patience is the biggest thing that we ask for from the public in this process, because the last thing that we want to do as postal workers is withdraw our labor again and find ourselves out on a picket line. That's really the last case scenario that anybody wants to go through. But the public needs to remember that we were in a legal strike position in November and December, and we would be in a legal strike position again when the process unpauses on the midnight of the 22nd into the 23rd. So patience from the public for sure is something that we would really ask for at this time while we work through the next few days, and to try to understand that postal workers we're people just like everybody else. I mean, we have mortgages to pay. Our kids want to be in sporting events, and you know, we have a life just like everybody else. And when we pause and go on strike and withdraw our label, it's the last thing that we want to do. It's the very last step that we want to do in order to achieve what we feel we need to achieve.
Shifting now to sports, Canadian hockey fans still have a home team left in this year's playoffs. The Edmonton Oilers will be taking on the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Finals, which kicks off tomorrow night. The CBC's Paige Parsons has more ahead of Game 1.
Edmonton has won the game and the series!
Edmonton Oilers fans say this is the year the team can take the cup.
You watch, we're going to go all the way.
We won the cup!
As this year's playoff run heats up, Oilers diehards are once again welcoming fans of other Canadian teams to hop on the Edmonton bandwagon.
All Toronto fans are all going to be Oilers fans now, so including all Winnipeg and Vancouver's, everything's going to be all Edmonton now.
We have Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. I think this fan base reaches far more than the city of Edmonton.
The Oilers are the last Canadian team standing in the playoffs, facing off against the Dallas Stars starting Wednesday, knowing some fans are shifting allegiances to back them.
You know, obviously, there's going to be some Flames fans or Toronto fans that probably aren't cheering for us.
The pressure is on now. Winnipeg Jets fans' hopes were dashed on the weekend. The Toronto Maple Leafs are out too, and some of their fans are fed up.
There's more jerseys on the ice in the last 10 minutes that I saw jerseys in the stands.
Like every year, it's the same song and dance. It's just brutal.
Even Canadian skaters playing against Toronto say they don't envy the pressure Leafs players were under.
It's got to be tough on those guys to walk to the rink every day and not feel that, because I mean, you see the way the fans treat them at the end. Like, how do you not feel that every single day?
And so it's all on Edmonton, facing a more formidable version of Dallas than last year.
They traded for Mikko Rantanen. He's one of the best players in the NHL, so they have the star power that maybe they were missing a little bit last year.
But this sports writer adds that the Oilers are now more experienced too, that they have the depth and the talent to win.
I think the general hockey fan in Canada will be cheering on the Edmonton Oilers. They want a Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup. They want to bring it back to Canada.
They meet the Stars on Wednesday in Dallas. Paige Parsons, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, the pride of Butlerville returned to his hometown this weekend. Jacob Lewis is hot off the heels of his $1 million victory on this season of Canada's Got Talent, and he received a hero's homecoming on Sunday.
All you have to do is look around here and see what you mean to the community of Butlerville where you were born and raised. You go to the mainland, you win Canada's Got Talent, you get a record deal, you get $1 million. Man, you set a high standard there.
If you've known me before, you know I always dream really big, and I always have. But none of this happens without you folks, without the support of Newfoundland and Labrador, with everyone that also chimed in across Canada. You guys have helped make this a reality, and I can't thank you enough for that. If you're out there, if you're a kid, if you're an adult, if you're anybody here and you got a dream of something, I just live in proof that a regular Joe, this can become possible for you guys. When I auditioned for Canada's Got Talent, I was dreaming big, and that's not a lie. I really was dreaming big, and I wanted to see what could happen. I did not expect May 24th weekend. This is where I'd be standing right now. And from the bottom of my heart, myself, my family, this is absolutely wonderful. There's so many of you guys. I hope to get the chance to talk with all you guys. This is wonderful. Your support is amazing. I know there's a support from a lot of people up there that really mean a lot to me. And all the best to you guys.
Tell me what's next.
Well, I got a few irons in the fire, so it's probably going to be some things hitting the airways within the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. And do you have any ideas what you want to do with the $1 million? I've been asking people around what they would do.
I want to make sure it doesn't dissipate very fast, so I got to make sure to hold on to as much of that as I can.
Did you ever think that when you were singing in your car that you'd end up here?
I was dreaming of it, but to actually be living it now, I didn't think that was going to happen, but I'm so happy that it has.
What does it mean to you to have so much support from Newfoundlanders and Labradorians?
I'm a very proud Newfoundlander, and to have that support, it means unbelievable amount, and I really can't thank everyone enough for that.
Oh, that's so nice. And a question of what he was going to do with his $1 million, going to make it last. Very sensible.
I mean, it's not hard to spend.
Yeah. What would you do if you won $1 million?
Oh, I don't know.
Either.
Rescue all the beagles. It's something like that.
All right, well, let's talk about the weather. I guess one good thing about this shift into this weather pattern is that it's been a bit more damp and it has eased off on those wildfire risks throughout the province.
Yeah, really the risk is day to day, right? Because we get a couple of days of warm temperatures, dry conditions, then that fire risk goes up. And that's exactly what's going to happen in Labrador as we head through the end of this week and into the beginning of next week. Let's take a look at what's going on. So we're going to continue to see this northerly flow right into Thursday for the island portion of the province, but up across Labrador, you're still looking at some sunshine. Coastal areas, still some, the cloud cover will stick around, but overall things are starting to dry out, and that's because we're going to be sitting under a ridge of high pressure for the most part. But because we've got that onshore flow still, that cloud cover will stick around across the island. We may see a little bit of drizzle with this as well, but overall, the skies will clear out as we head into the afternoon and evening, especially for those of you on the west coast. That's where the temperatures will be the warmest, between 10 to 14 degrees. Central, eastern areas, again, all along the northeast coast, temperatures will stay quite chilly, anywhere from 4 to 6 degrees. And then Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures warming back up. 13 to 16 degrees is your daytime highs. However, towards the coast, still sitting in the single digits, anywhere from 6 to 7 degrees. Now, as we head into Friday, that ridge of high pressure will continue to sink a little bit further south. This will be really the nicest day of the work week, where we will see some sunshine, but we do have our next area of low pressure just to our south. That's going to continue to bring another round, or is going to bring another round of cloud cover, and then some showers Friday evening for the south coast at this point. And then for Labrador, again, overall, just looking at the chance of some showers to the north. Other than that, nothing really. You're looking at your temperatures in between 6 to 18 degrees as your day, 16 to 18 degrees rather. And then fairly mild for central and western portions as well. But we're going to stay into the single digits for the Avalon, and then same thing as along the south coast. And overall, you're looking at some showers moving in. By the time we get into Saturday for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland, you are looking at some periods of rain. Temperatures will be sitting around 7 degrees. But for Sunday, the first part of the day we'll see some showers, but it should clear out and reaching about 15 degrees as our daytime high. For Central, you're going to continue to see a rainy weekend. Same thing for the West. Overall temperatures will drop a little bit by the time we get into Sunday. And then for Labrador, there's that nice stretch of weather I was talking about, anywhere from 13 to 18 degrees, overnight lows, just a little bit above zero there, but plenty of sunshine. A little bit more cloud cover though for Western Labrador, but overall you'll be in the teens. Our weather photo of the day, we are going to get lots of these because there are lots of them.
Oh, good, yes. Wow, that's a big one.
That's a big one, yeah. It's just one of the many bergs that are in Twillingate right now. Gordon shared that great shot with us, and if you have any that you would like to share with us, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that's a great shot. I wonder how the iceberg just outside St. John's Harbour is doing. I haven't gotten any updates.
Socked in fog now, so.
That's right. That's right.
We'll see.
See it anyways. It would be nice if it comes a little bit closer, sticks around for a while.
Yeah, it totally would be.
All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.